All right, welcome to your first lesson in our curriculum, Social Studies 101, the verbs. Hopefully you read through the overview on that page. So these are verbs that you are going to use this year in social studies. These are the verbs that I'm going to use for you to do assignments. So I may ask you to summarize something or compare, explain, analyze, evaluate. These verbs go with our standards, and so this is what we are starting with. Okay, there we go. All right, so the first verb, summarize. It is a verb, obviously. The definition: to create a shortened version giving the main points. I found a sentence. I summarized the short story by writing a description of the main events. You summarize quite often in your English language arts class. You summarize in math when you give an answer. That's a summary of the problem. I'm sure you summarize in science as well. So when you give a shortened version of an article that you've read or a lab that you've done, when you summarize what you did. So summarize. Synonyms, things that are the same as summarize, for you to sum up, outline, recap it, digest the information, or sketch it out. There's could be other ways to think about it. Okay. Our next verb, compare. So in social studies, when you hear the word compare, you automatically need to be thinking compare and contrast. We don't say compare and contrast in social studies. We just use the verb compare, and that means that you're doing both. I know often in English language arts, they're two separate. So when we use compare, it's automatically compare and contrast. That's why I have it on the screen together. So when you compare, you're looking at what two or more things that something has in common. How are they similar? How are they the same? When you're contrasting, of course, you're going to talk about how they're different or what they don't have in common. So compare synonyms. When things are alike, they're the same, they're similar, they match, they come close to, they resemble. Contrast synonyms, when things are different, they're opposite, they're distinct. What characteristic makes them distinct from other things? When they diverge, or that means separate, go against, or contradict. All right, the next one is explain. Definition: to make plain or clear, to make known in detail, to assign a meaning, to interpret, to make clear the cause or reason. So if you summarized all of those definitions, one thing that's in common is that you make something clear. When you explain it, it's almost like you're teaching it. You're given the details and trying to make it clear to your audience. Synonyms: describe, make plain, clarify, that's that make clear, translate, teach. All right, analyze. Picking apart the pieces and examining them or studying them carefully. So like, looking for the clues of what makes sense. All right, your synonyms: to examine, to inspect, to survey, to scan, and to study. I'm going to go back to analyze for a second. When you're analyzing things, it's almost like you're picking them apart. It's like you have this big puzzle. We all know what puzzles are. And instead of looking at the big picture, you're actually figuring out the pieces of the puzzle as to how did it come together. So when you're analyzing in history, you're trying to break it down into its parts. And the parts might be the causes of something, like the causes of that war, the effects of that war. Were there some pieces that led to that cause? So analyze is you're going to take that puzzle and you're going to break it apart into its pieces. All right, now moving forward into evaluate. A simple definition of evaluate is to judge the value or condition of something in a careful and thoughtful way. And in social studies, when we evaluate, we're often using that word judging. You're judging if something seems like it is right or wrong. You're judging using evidence from what you learned. If something was effective, did it work? Or was it ineffective? Did it not work? So that's what you kind of want to remember with the simple definition of evaluate, to judge. It's kind of and that next one on the bottom says that to judge the quality of, the importance of, the amount of, or the value of something. And we will definitely lean in that direction when we are evaluating. Okay. Synonyms: assess, judge, estimate, appraise, and rate. So like if you were given a star system 1 to 5, and you say, oh, what's the quality of that? And you give it 1 star, you are evaluating it. You give it 5 stars, you are evaluating it, giving it your rating. Okay, so in a moment, you are going to go back to the module and you're going to make a copy of this slide deck that I have just presented, because in the copy, you're going to go into this slide and you're going to type your definition, the definition of your own words of summarize, and then you're going to retype the social studies definition that I gave you. So same thing, compare. So you could go in and just type the social studies definition first and then make it in your own words. There's 2 slides for you to do this, okay? And then you'll go to your do part of the module and you will see that I'm asking you to screenshot slides 12 and 13 and you will upload them for me to look at. So one way to evaluate if you did your work in a correct way or in an effective way is after you type in the social studies definition, you need to look back at your definition and make sure that your words are different than my words. I should not be reading my definition under the heading of each one for your definition. So you need to make sure that you put it the way you understand it in your own words. So that's one way to evaluate or to judge if your work has turned out the way it should. And your own words, my definitions that I gave you. Okay, so slides 12 and 13. You can go back. Obviously, after you copy this, you will have all the slides so that you can go back and look at the definitions I gave you, and you'll be able to rewatch this video as much as you'd like. Okay? All right. Bye.